The leaves are not stirring. The sun is scorching the broken earth of Texas, pale as the color of dried grass. The air carries the warm, woody, faintly sweet scent of cedar. And in a shallow hollow between two rocks, motionless, silent, and invisible, it is waiting for you. West Texas, the Trans-Pecos region, a harsh geography, a place apart from the rest of the world, as if the world left it unfinished. Plateaus of fractured limestone, torrential rains that haven't come in years, parched lands thirsting for water, mesquite thickets with little shade but dense thorns, nearly impassable. Today the temperature has surpassed 40 degrees. The soil cries out as if begging for a single drop of water. The rocks have no more tears left to shed. In this heat, animals retreat to the background. They wait for darkness to fall. But there is one that does not retreat. It uses this heat to its advantage. It uses the rocks like a compass. It turns light into camouflage, browns, pale yellows, dusty gray tones. It blends into the terrain so completely that people cannot see it. Sometimes there are those who step on it. People have stepped on it, yet gone unbitten. Because this animal decides for itself when to strike. It does not carry the rules of nature. It sets its own rules. The Western Diamondback Rattlesnake. Scientific name, Crotalus atrox. It is the most consequential venomous snake for humans in North America, but not the most venomous. This distinction matters more than you might think. In the United States, it stands out as one of the species most frequently associated with snakebite incidents. It draws attention not because its venom is the most potent, but because it lives in such close proximity to human settlements. It can be found in all 254 counties of Texas. It can appear on the edges of suburbs, on farms, on hiking trails, in gardens, and even on golf courses. We share the same living spaces, yet it has no intention of harming you unless it perceives a threat. Its body is an engineering marvel. Adults can reach an average length of 1.5 meters. Specimens even longer than this have been reported. The diamond patterns on its back are reminiscent of the camouflage of ancient warriors. Its outer contours appear to be divided into fragmented visual zones. Depth perception deceives the eye. It merges with the ground. Among the smallest pebbles, cracked earth, and shadows filtering through the trees, it vanishes without being noticed. The rattle is that small tail everyone knows about, but most of us understand incorrectly. You think the rattle is a warning directed at you, but it isn't. The rattle is actually a warning system against large hooved animals, bison, deer, horses. Not something a snake can digest, but heavy enough to crush and injure a snake. The rattle is not a sign of aggression. It is, on the contrary, a defense mechanism. If a snake is shaking its rattle, it is to avoid encountering you, not to confront you, but to prevent that confrontation. The truly dangerous strike is the silent one. If it isn't warning you with the sound of its rattle, that is when the alarm bells are truly ringing. And in an instant, an ambush coming from a distance equal to 2/3 of its body length, at a speed the human eye cannot track. Now a contrast that will shake everything you thought you knew. Most of us, the vast majority, are told about this animal as if it were a symbol of pure aggression. But the reality is entirely different. In the great majority of encounters with humans, it is not actually attacking. It is trying to protect itself. In other words, the source of danger is not malicious intent. The danger lies in our coming too close to each other. The danger, more often than not, is hidden in our failure to notice what is already there. Did you know this? So how does this friend of ours complete the food chain? The Western Diamondback identifies the paths that mice and rabbits travel repeatedly. It makes its home alongside these paths, coils up there, and waits for its meal to come. The Western Diamondback Rattlesnake's pit organ detects temperature changes as small as 0.001 degrees Celsius in its surroundings. The pit organ consists of a 5 mm hollow located between the snake's eye and nostril. Inside this hollow lies an extremely thin membrane, 15 micrometers thick, that functions as an infrared antenna. This membrane absorbs heat from the external environment and warms up very rapidly. This allows it to sense its prey approaching and approaching closer still without needing to see it. Its strike is one of the fastest movements on land. It occurs at a speed of approximately 2.5 meters per second. Its fangs are hollow and normally lie folded back, but at the moment of contact, they swing forward and instantly penetrate the skin. The entire process takes less time than the blink of an eye. The human eye blinks in approximately 300 milliseconds. So before you have even managed to close your eye, it has already struck and withdrawn. Its venom primarily impacts the circulatory system and tissue. It affects blood flow and cellular structure, initiating the digestive process. The snake then releases its prey and allows it to flee. But it does not give chase. It tracks the scent trail with its tongue. Among hundreds, thousands of different animal scents, it finds the exact animal it has bitten. Shall I tell you something fascinating? Research shows that Western Diamondback rattlesnakes have a habit we call site fidelity. That is, they return to the same dens year after year. In fact, these dens are passed down from generation to generation, almost like an inheritance. In Gillespie County, Texas, a single den has been recorded as having been in continuous use for over 40 years. But this is not one snake. It is the continuation of a lineage that knows that territory and remains bound to it. And this is still not the most unsettling part. Recent radio telemetry studies show that individual rattlesnakes recognize specific humans, caretakers, researchers, and modify their defensive behavior based on prior encounters. They remember. Perhaps not in the way we understand the word, but at a functional level. They update their models of the world. Which raises the question, if we are dealing with a creature this complex, why do we still see it as nothing more than something to be feared? In Texas alone, approximately 7,000 snakebite cases are reported each year. Across all of the United States, approximately 8,000. The national annual death toll falls between 5 and 6, below the death counts from dog attacks, lightning strikes, or bee stings. 5 to 6 people per year in a country of 330 million. That number tells you something. This animal, which possesses every biological capacity to make human fatalities routine, overwhelmingly chooses to step back. Not because it is gentle, but because striking is metabolically expensive. Venom takes days to replenish, and a snake that wastes it on an animal it cannot eat goes hungry. The Western Diamondback is a keystone species. Remove it, and the rodent populations it controls will explode, triggering a cascading collapse in agricultural areas. Texas farmers who kill every rattlesnake they see are personally cultivating the rodent infestation that will devastate their own crops. If you know anyone in Texas or anywhere in the American Southwest, they need to hear this. The Western Diamondback has survived every mass extinction event in the last 20 million years. It survived the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. It survived the formation of the Chihuahuan Desert. It survived the arrival of humans on this continent. Perhaps the only thing it cannot survive is direct persecution, habitat, fragmentation, and the indifference of a culture that reaches for a shovel before asking what it is looking at. Rattlesnake roundup events, festivals still held in many Texas counties, where thousands of snakes are annually collected, are not backed by any documented ecological justification. Wildlife biologists have been calling for their abolition for decades. The events continue, and still the snake remains there, coiled, patient between the cactus and the limestone rock. This is actually what I find most thought-provoking. Not the venom, not the speed, the silence, the state of refusing to be anything other than what it is. An animal that stays motionless while everything else rushes, that waits while the world drowns in noise. This was only one part of the story, its social behaviors, its thermal migration routes, the cases observed in juveniles that can only be described as play. Those are a separate topic entirely, something else altogether. Stay close.